So we are 10 days away from 49ers veterans reporting to training camp. But we're a little bit closer to rookies reporting to training camp. And one of those rookies is Ronnie Bell, who, as you can see here, is currently wearing number 10 for the 49ers. A little funny to see a different number 10 after so many seasons. So obviously it was Jimmy Garoppolo's number for the 49ers. And there's also Zane Gonzalez, the 49ers kicker, second string kicker. I would say that Jake Moody is going to win that job, but Zane Gonzalez is currently on the roster. He's wearing number 10. So right now in the offseason, because there aren't enough jerseys, when you have 91 players on the roster for everybody to have their own number, you've got Zane Gonzalez and you have Ronnie Bell, both wearing Jimmy Garoppolo's old number 10. So we're Ronnie Bell days away from 49ers training camp report day for veterans, and we're Zane Gonzalez days away from that. Now, Ronnie Bell's going to report earlier as part of the 49ers group of rookies in just 3 days on July 18th. It's July 25th for the veterans. Anyway, both Ronnie Bell and Zane Gonzalez, when we talk about their situations, why the 49ers either drafted or traded for them, a lot of it has to do with the salary cap. So why not do a 49ers salary cap update here 10 days away from veteran report day? I will tell you that the 49ers have about $9.2 million of 2023 room currently available. But the situation is much more complex than that. Next season, the 49ers already have over $270 million in liabilities. Consider the fact that the salary cap this year is at about $224 million. If it increases next year, it would have to increase $50 million. Yeah, it'd have to increase about $50 million for the 49ers to be able to fit all of their 2024 liabilities under the cap. Nobody's going to know the cap until January 2024 at the soonest because it's tied to NFL revenues. But in almost all likelihood, it won't be as high as $270 million. That means that the 49ers are in a bit of a future cap crunch. They're facing that. Remember that unused cap space from 2023 will carry over into 2024. The point is the 49ers need to save as much money as possible right now. They need to rework things moving forward so that they can maintain a strong roster in 2024. It's not impossible for them to survive this, but it's going to have to take some creativity. And this is where the draft comes into play, and this is where smart trades come into play. First, in the case of Ronnie Bell, the 49ers have Jauan Jennings under contract as their third wide receiver this year at a very economical cap hit of only $940,000. But Jennings' contract expires after this season. He will be a restricted free agent in the offseason. As a restricted free agent, he's going to be able to at least partially test his value on the market. The 49ers can apply an original round tender to him, a second round tender to him, or a first round tender to him. Those are all increasingly expensive. Second round tender usually costs between $4 and $5 million, and the first round tender costs something like $7 or $8 million. The way these tenders work are, well, since he's a restricted free agent, the 49ers have the right of first refusal. So if they slap the second round tender on Jauan Jennings, and another team decides to offer him more than whatever that second round tender is, in the past it was $4.3 million, the 49ers have a chance at matching the offer of the other team, or they can let Jennings walk. And if he does walk and sign elsewhere, the 49ers will get a second round pick in return. Same thing with the first round tender. 49ers would get a first round pick in return. But you're guaranteeing that you're going to pay him that much money, that big of a contract for the season if you put that tender on him, $4 million or $7 million, whatever the first round tender would be. The original round tender, I believe, is around $2 million. Some people have told me they think Jauan Jennings is worth several million. Some people think he's worth a little bit less. I think that the 2023 season will determine what Jauan Jennings is worth. But the ultimate lesson to be learned here is that he's going to be more expensive than somebody on a rookie deal. And the 49ers have already over $270 million of 2024 liabilities. So they're going to be trying to cut costs next season. They might not necessarily have room for several $1 million going to a third wide receiver like Jauan Jennings. Back in 2020, the 49ers brought back Kendrick Bourne as a restricted free agent. They could no longer keep him in 2021 when he was an unrestricted free agent. Is the same pattern going to apply to Jauan Jennings? Are they going to be able to keep him as a restricted free agent for another season? or are they going to have to move to another third wide receiver? And that might be Ronnie Bell, 7th-round pick in the 2023 draft, just like Jauan Jennings was in the 2020 draft. We'll see. And a lot of it's going to depend on what happens this year, because Jennings is going to assert his value this season. He could price himself out of the 49ers range. Maybe he won't. But I've talked about Jauan Jennings. It was his birthday 5 days ago. He's such a valuable piece, and he might be too valuable for the 49ers by the time this season ends. They have not shown a proclivity to pay big money for a third wide receiver so far in this regime. That's why they ultimately let Kendrick Bourne walk. They replaced him with Jauan Jennings. And the question is, will Ronnie Bell take Jennings' place? Ronnie Bell showed great hands during OTAs. He showed a presence during OTAs, and he's got special teams ability. We already knew that from his time at Michigan, but that's probably how he can make the 49ers roster here in 2023. Then we know that Kyle Shanahan coaches receivers really hard. So Ronnie Bell's going to have to get over that hump. All of that's going to have to happen before 2024 for the 49ers to consider not bringing Jennings back next year, because you have to have a replacement for him, right? But if the 49ers have depth behind Jauan Jennings that showcases that it can, do a job here in 2024 and beyond, after developing in 2023, they'll have way more financial flexibility moving forward. Along those lines, Zane Gonzalez. This picture, by the way, this is from Josh Dubow, AP writer. He took this picture. I found it on Twitter. Going to use it on the screen. We're Zane Gonzalez days away from 2023 49ers training camp. Holding him is really, really good business for the 49ers. And I will explain why. The 49ers acquired Zane Gonzalez at essentially no cost. It was a trade from the Carolina Panthers, and Zane Gonzalez had an advantageous contract. He's making $1.465 million this year. None of it's guaranteed, but he's under contract, so under team control for the 2023 season. The 49ers picked up Zane Gonzalez in that trade before they drafted the other man in this picture. That is Jake Moody, the rookie kicker out of Michigan. They also acquired Zane Gonzalez at a cost that is negligible, if not nothing, a conditional 7th-round pick swap. The 49ers only have to swap picks with Carolina if Zane Gonzalez makes the 53-man roster. We know that the 49ers went on to draft Jake Moody. Jake Moody is almost certainly going to be this team's kicker. Then the 49ers will let go of Zane Gonzalez when they have to cut down to the 53-man roster, or before then, if another team wants to trade for Zane Gonzalez. But the fact that the 49ers have him on the 90-man roster right now means they have an asset that another team may be willing to part draft capital for. Again, that $1.465 million is not guaranteed, but there is team control for 2023. A team gets desperate for a kicker due to a training camp injury, due to training camp, some funny business happening in a training camp kicker battle. They can give the 49ers theoretically a 6th-round pick, and the 49ers can have a 6th-round pick that they wouldn't have had. It's like creating a sixth-round pick out of thin air. In fact, I can't believe that another team didn't try to trade for somebody like Zane Gonzalez after the Carolina Panthers brought in another kicker, rendered Zane obsolete. Maybe the Panthers should have even kept Zane for a little bit longer, but they didn't. They didn't find a really high price from the 49ers, a conditional 7th-round pick swap that the 49ers, when teams are more desperate here later in the offseason, might be able to flip this kicker for a higher draft pick. And when you do have draft picks moving forward into seasons when you've got a lot of financial liabilities, that's the cheapest way to build a football team, because the draft is cost controlled. There's the rookie wage scale. The first pick costs a certain amount, second pick costs less, third pick costs less, so on and so forth. So if you could stack 5th and 6th and 7th-round picks, don't tell me they're worthless. Brock Purdy was a 7th-round pick, number 262. Jauan Jennings was a 7th-round pick. Ronnie Bell was a 7th-round pick. You stack those picks, you can replenish the margins of a roster at a cost-controlled price with team control over 4 years. So holding Zane Gonzalez is good business for the 49ers because they have a chance to pick up a draft pick. And even if they don't, it's a no-loss situation, right? And even if they don't let go of Zane Gonzalez, well, it was because Jake Moody got hurt or something happened to where the 49ers needed to break the glass in case of emergency. They needed to activate that insurance policy. So no star players for the 49ers here 10 days ahead of training camp, but 2 players who are really important. Zane Gonzalez, number 10, and obviously Ronnie Bell, number 10. Important for different reasons. Gonzalez for the reasons of business here in the offseason, insurance in case something happens with Jake Moody, but really just cap space will free up when the 49ers let him go, and maybe they'll get a draft pick in return. And Ronnie Bell, you look forward into the future of Jauan Jennings. Maybe Ronnie Bell is the 49ers' future third wide receiver. So we're talking a little game theory today with the 49ers because the players at day number 10 are not as well known. So let's open it up to some questions. This is going to be a 49ers Q&A. Saturday, July 15th, 10 days away from 49ers veterans reporting to training camp. Waiting for some questions. Who's wearing number 9 now? Braden Willis, the tight end, rookie tight end for tomorrow. So we'll have a good little segment on Braden Willis. Tomorrow's Margot's birthday. You can wish her happy birthday at Lombardi herself. Here. This is at Twitter, of course. I don't think she's watching right now. She's at a hair appointment. So go on Twitter. Do that. Happy birthday to Margot at Lombardi herself. We'll see how many people end up doing it. That'll be fun. Pour those questions in. If they wanted to trade Lance next year, wouldn't they have to play him for sure this year to get his trade value up? You don't play people to up trade value. That's not how the NFL works, especially if you're a really good team, right? If you're a really good team, then you need to focus on winning football games. By extension, when you try to win football games, guys will put good tape on film, and then that is tradable, right? That has some value. Yes, you were correct that Trey Lance's value has never been lower than it is right now because he's hardly played over the past 2 years. He's coming off an injury. But hey, the 49ers aren't going to go out of their way to thrust Trey Lance into a game just to raise his trade value. That's a backwards way of operating. His trade value will increase if he plays for the 49ers organically, and he plays well for the 49ers organically, and they have options at the 49ers at the quarterback position, because the only way that you can think about trading him is if you have plenty of options at the quarterback position, and Trey Lance is expendable. But you never play somebody just to increase their trade value unless you're 0-10 and you're already thinking about next year. I don't see the 49ers being in such a scenario this season. And then if he plays well, he won't be traded. I think Mike delivered the punchline there. We can't think in terms of trade value, though. That's how fans think. It's not how the front office thinks. The fans are always thinking, oh, they're doing this for his trade value. It's like, no, they're trying to win football games. They're trying to develop options. They're not playing a Madden video game, right? They're trying to bolster a roster because they realize guys get hurt and they realize that unforeseen shit happens. So you have to have depth at every single position, including quarterback, which is the most important one. Exactly. The 49ers have announced joint practices with the Raiders, or at least the Raiders have announced joint practices with the 49ers. August 10th and August 11th, joint practices in Las Vegas. Day off on Saturday and a game on August 12th against the Raiders in Vegas. Still waiting on word on whether or not Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be ready for the start of training camp for the Raiders. But if he is, that would be awesome, right? Jimmy Garoppolo against the 49ers at practice in Las Vegas on August 9th and August 10th. And I guess the Raiders have an outdoor facility. That is Vegas. It gets hot in the summer. So practices are going to be early in the morning before it gets too hot. I heard the Death Valley might set a world temperature record today or this weekend. I guess today is the weekend. 131 degrees, they're saying. And you're not supposed to be outside past 10 a.m. But there's people like actually traveling there so they can say that they've experienced the hottest day, at least in modern world history. I'm sure it was hotter at some point before. But 131 degrees, that's hot. I was in the desert in Arabia where it was also humid because it's coming off the Persian Gulf. It was 108 degrees and humid. Maybe 131 and dry in Death Valley is bearable, but more bearable. It's not bearable. Maybe it's more bearable than 108 and humid, but maybe not. And either way, I don't want to experience either of those two temperatures again. Not a well, I didn't never experience the 131. I'm not gonna pretend that I did, but 108 with humidity, I did, and I guess there are people that are seeking out 131 in Death Valley, and I think they're crazy. This is such a good point. I don't know how anyone knows how a rookie is going to perform before actually watching them in training camp or actual game time. This should be directed at Eagles fans who think that Jalen Carter is automatically going to be good despite having so many red flags coming out of Georgia, right? I mean, I think the most alarming one as far as football goes was that he wasn't in great shape at his pro day. So you look at guys that you think are going to be good in the NFL, you cannot say, I know he's going to be good because the NFL is a whole new ball game. It's a totally different landscape than college football. The most versatile player on the 49ers roster has to be one of the three players in NFL history to have thrown for a touchdown, run for a touchdown, and caught a touchdown in the same game. And that's Christian McCaffrey. Also a really good piano player. Kyle Juszczyk is very versatile as well. I mean, both of those guys. You got the Stanford guy, Christian McCaffrey, and the Harvard guy, Kyle Juszczyk. So I'm sure they're versatile in what they're able to do off the field as well. I think that Christian McCaffrey was like playing at a concert in Denver a couple weeks ago. I mean, he's a musician, awesome in the community. I mean, I wrote that one story about Logan's legacy about a month ago. Christian McCaffrey's on top of a lot of stuff, but so is Kyle Juszczyk. Debo Samuel is also very versatile. I mean, the 49ers try to be versatile. That's how they built this offense. George Kittle can play wide out running back or his natural position tight end. So he's extremely versatile too. But Christian McCaffrey is one of three players in NFL history to do what I just said, throw, catch, and run for a touchdown in the same game. He's also one of three players in NFL history to go 1,000, 1,000. Two of the three are 49ers, right? Roger Craig first did it in the 1980s. Then LaDainian Tomlinson did it, and then Christian McCaffrey did it with the Carolina Panthers. Do you think Christian McCaffrey will go 1,000, 1,000 this year? That could be a good question. Do I see Kyle Shanahan getting better at clock management this season? I don't know, but I sure hope that he gets better at when to throw a challenge flag because that might have cost the 49ers a Super Bowl last year, and I'm not kidding. Devontae Smith did not catch that fourth down pass. Kyle Shanahan got caught looking at the scoreboard instead of having somebody upstairs with a better angle. It was obvious to a lot of people back home that he should have challenged or at least called timeout. He didn't. That timeout would have allowed a challenge. The 49ers defense was gassed. The Eagles scored a touchdown that they wouldn't have scored had Kyle Shanahan thrown the challenge flag. Philadelphia was ahead as a result at home. Because they were ahead, Hassan Reddick didn't have to respect the run on 2nd and 6 from midfield. Because he didn't respect the run, he blew by Tyler Kroft on the play fake, and he injured Brock Purdy. Everything went down the toilet for the 49ers. Everything's connected in a game of football. And Kyle Shanahan really, really dropped the ball. Didn't drop the challenge flag. Too bad that he didn't. And because he didn't do that and everything's connected in the game of football, the 49ers got blown out by the Eagles because Brock Purdy got hurt. Tough break, right? But Kyle Shanahan's got to be better than he was in the NFC Championship game. I have no clue why Craig is not in the Hall of Fame. I think the first guy to have ever gone 1,000 Super Bowl titles to his name should be in the Hall of Fame. You can answer why in the comments section. I am at a loss when it comes to that question. Do I think Marcelino McCrary-Ball gets that third linebacker spot? He doesn't have it locked up. I mean, there's going to be competition. This guy was on the practice squad last year. You don't go from practice squad to having locked anything up before training camp even starts. They drafted D. Winters. They drafted Jalen Graham. All these guys are going to be gunning for the number 3 linebacker spot. But Marcelino McCrary-Ball boxing yesterday along with Dre Greenlaw. I mean, that was a fun video, right? That was good stuff yesterday. Dre Greenlaw looks like Mike Tyson. 49ers have already said that. Kyle Shanahan has talked about that. That was McCrary-Ball's first time ever boxing. And he looked shredded. His technique wasn't as good because it was his first time ever in the ring, but looks like he is in good shape, and nothing will get you into shape quicker than boxing. So if he adds that to his routine here before the season, he should be ready to go for September 10th. I can't answer your question because you're asking which players worked on their craft, and then you say that showed in camp. Camp hasn't started yet. Camp is not going to start for another 10, 11 days. This is the 10-day mark to report day. Yeah, Brock Purdy does not count against the salary cap. If you want to do a cap update addendum, his cap hit of in something like 846,000, maybe 874,000, 864. It's in the 800Ks. Does not count against the cap because in the offseason, only the top 51 contracts count against the cap. And Purdy's ranks like 60th on the 49ers, and he's their top quarterback. So it's like, that's a bargain right there. They're getting their bang for the buck. Now, once Purdy makes the 53-man roster, it will count against the cap because they'll cut guys 53 to 90 and then re-sign some players to the practice squad. But for now, Brock Purdy's number does not count against the salary cap. Tommy says the Niners will be over the cap in 2024. Time to win is now. There are ways for the 49ers, though, to really efficiently work within the system. One is they're going to get money and open up 2023 cap space when they extend Nick Bosa's contract because it's going to spread his cap hit out into future years. It's currently about $18 million. I calculate they can bring it down to about $10 million. There's $8 more million if they execute this deal with Nick Bosa the way that I expect them to. That should be happening within the next couple of weeks. So you add the $8 million to the $9.2 million, and that's over $17 million in cap space. I think the 49ers have cap space set aside so that they can make an in-season move, and they don't want to make that in-season move until they have to because they don't know exactly where this team's weaknesses are going to be. For example, last season, the 49ers saw Christian McCaffrey pop available right around midseason, right before that trade deadline. They were able to absorb Christian McCaffrey's contract, not only for last season, but for the subsequent 3 years, including this one. This year, they are armed again with draft capital. For the first time since 2021, the 49ers have a first-round pick, and they could theoretically use that draft capital to make another splash trade ahead of the deadline. But you want to be really focused with your additions, right? Javon Hargrave was a very focused addition. Christian McCaffrey was a very focused addition. These are players who perfectly fit what the 49ers are doing, and therefore, they at least theoretically justify their cost. To make a good roster better is not easy. You have to spend a lot because you have to find players that are going to be better than what you already have, and with a good roster, that's pretty damn good. And then, not only do you have to find those players, you have to pay those players. It's going to cost either draft capital to acquire them, or it's going to cost financial capital to pay them, or both, right? So the 49ers have to make absolutely sure that whoever they do decide to acquire, if they do bring in somebody before this trade deadline, makes them better significantly. Not just a little bit better, but if this is a Super Bowl push, makes them better in the context of trying to win a Super Bowl. So you want to have money set aside to do that, but then you want to be sure that you need to do that. And you need to be sure of who you need to do that. So they've done it before. In 2019, they picked up Emmanuel Sanders. Obviously, in 2022, they picked up Christian McCaffrey. They made smaller trades in years before that. Jordan Willis in 2020, Charles Omenihu in 2021. So this team likes to be active before the deadline. And in 2 of the years, they've been very, very active before the deadline as far as making a splash signing, splash trade, Emmanuel Sanders, and then Christian McCaffrey. So if you're the 49ers, you enter this season with flexibility. The Bosa contract will give you more of it financially. The fact that you now have a full stock of draft picks gives you a lot more as far as a trade goes. And then you see how it evolves over the course of the 2023 season before you make a decision. Maybe they spend on an edge rusher. Maybe there's somebody available before the deadline. But first, they want to see how Drake Jackson does, right? How is Cleveland Farrell? How is Drake Jackson? How's Austin Bryant? How's Robert Beal Jr.? Maybe those guys are the answer. But if they end up not being the answer, if the 49ers feel like they want a little bit more of a boost, that's when you might make a trade before the trade deadline. If it's clear early on they're not the answer, maybe you make that trade earlier. But either way, you have to take all measures possible to ensure that you don't make this roster too bloated so that next year you're screwed because you already have $270 million in liabilities next season. So you have to be as cost efficient as possible now before letting that ship sail. Otherwise, you can fall off a cliff like the Rams did this past season. They had to start cutting guys this offseason because of the salary cap. So it's about sound financial management now and making moves only when you are armed with a full brain of knowledge. You think that the 49ers need a right tackle? The 49ers think that Colton McKivitz is their guy, at least for this year. They think they need a tackle long-term for sure because Trent Williams is 35, right? And they have draft capital next season, so they might draft a tackle really high up. Right now, they believe in Colton McKivitz. Maybe they need more depth at tackle. But who do you sign right now, right? Maybe they make a trade, but who do you trade for? It's hard to find good tackles. Teams don't want to let go of them. So the 49ers believe they've developed a good one in Colton McKivitz, but we're going to have to wait and see how he does in training camp in this 2023 season. Bosa's contract is going to happen right around the start of training camp, so I'd give it about 10, 11 more days. In fact, the countdown that I put into these videos, 10 days until report day for training camp, maybe that's a countdown for Nick Bosa's contract. Well, the 49ers, you say they need a safety, but they drafted Jair Brown. Their top draft pick this season was because Tashawn Gibson is older and they need a safety opposite Tana Hufanga. So you can't keep on saying they need a player when they just use their top draft pick to get that position. I think it's going to be a full 5 for Nick Bosa when he signs. And you can sign him for longer than that, but you can only prorate his cap hit for 5 years. So you probably bring him in for 5 on top of the option year. Maybe Bosa, though, wants a shorter deal so he can cash out with another contract sooner. So that's all part of the negotiations. Does Jake Moody make a Pro Bowl? How the heck am I supposed to know, man? We got to see how he kicks in regular season games. The NFL's a different beast, but he sure is talented. So McKivitz played really well last year against the Rams, but then he got hurt, so we didn't get to see all too much of him. He played in Week 18 of 2021 in place of Trent Williams. I don't think he played all that well. He gave up 5 pressures, but it was still a gutsy performance. Let's put it that way. He was thrust into that lineup instead of Trent Williams. The Rams were damn good. That pass rush was very fearsome in 2021, and Colton McKivitz did enough to give the 49ers a chance to win, and they did win a must-win game. And a lot of what happened on that afternoon has given the 49ers confidence in Colton McKivitz moving forward. I think he's gotten a lot better since then, because even though it was limited action last year, Colton McKivitz was a better pass protector than Mike McGlinchey. That's the hope for the 49ers, that the pass blocking has gotten better with Colton McKivitz. I'm not so sure that Kinlaw is going to lead the NFL in sacks, but if he does, the 49ers will certainly win the Super Bowl. All they need him to do is be a presence that eats up some double teams, buys some rest time for Javon Hargrave, because Kinlaw is not going to be a starter anymore this season. No, I do not get a ring if the 49ers win. I'm not part of the organization. Maybe Colton got better just like Banks did. Yeah, I mean, Aaron Banks had a big improvement from year 1 to year 2. Colton McKivitz has been developing since 2020. 2020, 2021, 2022. He's got 3 years under his belt, entering year 4. Now he's going to be the starting right tackle. Well, Jennings would only be traded if somebody else steps up and shows they can be a dependable number 3 receiver who can block, who can make big plays, who can separate like Jauan Jennings. Again, he's really, really valuable to the 49ers, especially at only $940,000. Yep. Already got the ring. It's a nice one. Nice and simple. That's the championship ring from this year. Maybe the Super Bowl. Maybe the 49ers win one in the same season. Go for Broke wants to know what the number 17 jersey is. The 17 is not going to be out till the season because in the studio here, I've got 21 and 9. 9 is not a Niners jersey. That's Shane Leckler, one of the greatest punters of all time. Then I got Frank Gore up there. Then I have Rudy Rudiger here. These were just all jerseys that were gifted to me by a friend, framed by my now wife. Rudy Rudiger is the Notre Dame Rudy, the one about whom a movie is made. Which one of these jerseys should I ship out to California? I think the Gore one out to California for the season, right? Maybe we do 21 and 17 for the season in the background. I'm going to get my place set up in San Francisco here coming up before training camp. Got to figure out which jersey is going to be in the background. Yep. I won't show a name of number 17 on the other side until the 49ers win the Super Bowl. When the 49ers win the Super Bowl, I guarantee you that the night of the 49ers Super Bowl win, if it happens, that's the deal that I have with the viewers. The 49ers aren't starting Purdy over Lance yet. We don't know who they're going to start yet. The leader in the clubhouse is Purdy. A lot of that is health dependent. Purdy is the favorite because he is better than Trey Lance right now. It's not any more complicated than that. Well, does Lance have a chance to make up some ground? Yes, of course he does. But Brock Purdy has done more in the NFL, and he's looked a lot better than Trey Lance's very little bit limited sample size doing so. And in a meritocracy, that's the way it should be, right? You earn a job because of your qualifications, and Brock Purdy has more qualifications, more experience, more good NFL game tape than Trey Lance right now. Now, it's in the 49ers' interest to develop all their quarterbacks because somebody was talking about trade value earlier. Yeah, trade value of guys is better if they play better. And we saw last season the 49ers needed to play several QBs due to injuries. It's not Madden with injuries turned off. So the 49ers have tried to build as strong of a quarterback room as possible that is strong not just at the top, but is also deep. So they have multiple options with which to survive an entire season. Last year, they didn't survive the entire season. It cost them the NFC Championship game. That's the goal. Then out of that strong quarterback room, once you've got strength in numbers, you pick the best one to start. And right now, Purdy has the inside track because Purdy is the best quarterback the 49ers have based on meritocracy, based on what he's already done. We'll move into the future and see if Trey Lance and Sam Darnold can make up some ground. All right, everybody, I've got to get going. Been on for a little bit more than 30 minutes. So 10 days away from 49ers Report Day. Exciting stuff. Ronnie Bell and Zane Gonzalez Day. Hopefully you enjoyed the salary cap update. We're just a couple hundred subscribers away from 40,000. So hit that sub button right now. Hit the notification bell as well. And if you don't hit either of those, then hit the like button. But do all three, and maybe the 49ers will win a Super Bowl if you do that. So hit the sub button. We'll talk to you very soon. Bye now.